Evolution of Dorothy Gale. Dorothy Gale makes her debut on-screen appearance in the 1908 filmed multimedia black-and-white stage show The Fairy Log and Radio Plays, which is based on the books by Lyman Frank Baum, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, portrayed by Romola Remis. Then, in the 1910 short, silent, live-action movie The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which is only inspired by the original story, Dorothy appears, played by Bebe Daniels. Here, she appears as a very young girl with long dark hair and wearing a dress. In the story, at the beginning, Dorothy and her friends are playing in a cornfield when they suddenly get swept away to the land of Oz by a cyclone, right in time for the witch Mumba to attack the Wizard of Oz and try to overtake his throne. While Dorothy plays with her dog Toto, the good witch Glinda comes and transforms Toto into a big version of himself for protection, with whom she later encounters the Cowardly Lion and the Rusty Woodman. At the end, despite her and others getting kidnapped and imprisoned by Mumba, once Mumba approaches her, she comes up with an idea to throw water at her, which kills her as a result, ending in their freedom and a celebratory dance in the Emerald City. In the 1914 silent live-action movie His Majesty the Scarecrow of Oz, which is loosely based on Baum's 1900 book The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, Dorothy is featured, depicted by Violet McMillan. Here, she appears visibly a bit older with lighter hair color, and is also wearing a dress and a hair bow. In the story, she plays a secondary role, specifically that after she suddenly appears in the land of Oz, she gets captured by the wicked witch Mombi, while the cruel dictator in the city unites with her to freeze the heart of Princess Gloria, who doesn't love him, so that she might be his eventually, and they also meet each other. Then Dorothy manages to run away with the now heartless Gloria, leading to their many attempts to escape from Mombi, which they manage to do until they finally encounter the Good Wizard, who traps Mombi and compels her to undo all the evil things she has done, including unfreezing Gloria's heart, ending with Dorothy's friend the Scarecrow easily deposing King Cruel and bringing everyone excitement as a result. In the next 1925 silent live-action movie, The Wizard of Oz, which is another adaptation of the eponymous novel, though one of the loosest ones, Dorothy appears, played by Dorothy Dwan. Here, compared to all her previous incarnations, she appears much older, not being a little girl and having short black hair, while still wearing a dress and a hair bow. In the story, she first appears living on a farm with her relatives in Kansas, though soon it is revealed by her aunt that she was placed on their porch as a baby, along with an envelope and instructions that it be opened only when she turns 18, much to her surprise. Meanwhile, in the land of Oz, people are rebelling against the current ruler, Prime Minister Cruel, and demanding the return of the princess, who disappeared as a baby many years ago, so she can be crowned their rightful ruler instead, prompting him to send his henchmen in order to find her, which coincides with her 18th birthday, causing them to demand the envelope for themselves. But while Dorothy and the workers from her farm struggled against them, a tornado swept them to the land of Oz, where she was finally able to read the contents of the envelope, discovering that she is actually Princess Dorothea, the rightful ruler of Oz. However, despite this, Cruel still captures her and now tries to force her to marry him in order to retain his power, but soon after gets stopped by Prince Kind and also one of her farm workers, allowing her to order his arrest and marry Prince Kind instead, ending in them living happily ever after. Dorothy returns in the 1933 animated short The Wizard of Oz, which is inspired by several elements from the original story and is also considered to be one of the very first movie productions in color ever made, with no voice provided. Here, she's again portrayed as a little girl with short black hair, but now also wearing a blue dress and socks, as well as a red hair bow. In the story, she initially follows the traditional storyline of her living on a farm in Kansas until a tornado sweeps her alongside her dog, Toto, to the land of Oz, where she encounters the Scarecrow and Tin Woodman on her journey to the Emerald City, where they all meet the Wizard of Oz, who makes custom seats for each of them and proceeds to show them various tricks, culminating in a hen releasing an egg that will not stop growing, scaring everyone, until it hatches and the chick reunites with its mom, ending in the happy singing by Dorothy and all the others. Dorothy reappears in the 1939 musical movie The Wizard of Oz, which is closely based on the original 1900 novel storyline and subsequently became one of the most culturally significant, watched, and iconic movies in history, portrayed by Judy Garland. Here she appears as a teenage girl with long red hair separated into two tails, wearing a white-blue sepia dress and later also ruby slippers, contrasted with the silver ones in the novel. The story begins with a similar element of Dorothy peacefully living on her farm with her aunt and uncle, as well as her dog, Toto, until one day a tornado takes her along and brings her to an unknown place, where she accidentally, fatally lands on the Wicked Witch of the East, causing the residents of the land, the Munchkins, to celebrate. At this time, she is also greeted by a good witch, Glinda, who transports the ruby slippers of the Wicked Witch of the East onto Dorothy before the Wicked Witch of the West could take hold of them, causing her anger and a promise of vengeance, while Glinda instructs Dorothy to follow the yellow brick road to the Emerald City, where she'll meet the Wizard of Oz, who could help her return home. On her way, she meets the Scarecrow, who wants a brain, the Tin Man, who wants a heart, and the Cowardly Lion, who wants courage, prompting them to unite and journey together, with the Wicked Witch attempting to stop them all the way through, though unsuccessfully. However, despite them finding the wizard, he doesn't help them upon their request, but instead gives them a task to bring him the Wicked Witch's broom in exchange for it, to which they agree. Eventually, in a confrontation with the witch, she sets fire to the Scarecrow's arm, prompting Dorothy to throw a bucket of water on it, inadvertently splashing the witch as well, causing her to melt and vaporize, freeing her broom. However, upon their second visit to the wizard, they reveal that he's a regular person from Kansas and, in his words, also a humbug, who can only help her by taking her aboard his hot air balloon and flying back to Kansas, a plan which fails after Dorothy pursues fleeing Toto, leaving her very upset, until Glinda reappears and reveals that she always had the power to return to Kansas using the ruby slippers by clicking them 3 times, and repeating, "There's no place like home," allowing her to come back home. Following, Dorothy reappears in the first animated TV series in the franchise, Tales of the Wizard of Oz, which revolves around the characters from the original work by Baum and also modifies several key plot lines in the story, voiced by Corin Conley. Here, in addition to her new animated look, she is now again portrayed as a little girl having red hair, with one long ponytail, and wearing a purple dress, while her personality is now much more assertive, rambunctious, and energetic, reflecting her original description as a heroine in the novel. In the series, the story of how she got to the Land of Oz gets changed to now her arriving there by way of her coming through a square hole in the landscape, which transports her from Kansas to Oz. There, after she encounters the Cowardly Lion, Scarecrow, and Tinman, whose names were changed in the story, she moves from one episode to the next in trying to get back home by various, often funny means, both with her and her friends' efforts, as shown when they try firing her out of a cannon, attempt to fly a pelican, or grow a very tall tree to take her there, as well as with the help from the Wizard of Oz, who now actually has real powers but still fails to help them due to his own ineptness, more often leading to accidents rather than something helpful. Next, in the 1964 first animated special Return to Oz, which is a sequel to the previous series, Dorothy appears voiced by Susan Conway. Here, she undergoes a noticeable redesign from her previous version, as now she has 2 pigtails and a yellow dress. In the story, sometime after the events of the previous story, in which traditionally Dorothy did manage to melt the Wicked Witch and also obtain the magic slippers, which are silver in this version, she receives a letter from the Scarecrow telling her that everyone is happy with the gifts the wizard gave them and that they miss her very much, but soon again gets teleported to Oz via a tornado. There, she meets Glinda, who informs her that the witch resurrected and now wreaks havoc throughout the land, such as having destroyed or taken away her friend's gifts, and plans to take away her slippers as well, though, according to Glinda, they will protect her and turn the heartless, brainless, and cowardly into solid stone. Then, in the course of the story, she again goes around Oz, rescues her friends, and ventures together with them to Emerald City to meet the Wizard of Oz, who now again becomes just a humbug, unable to help them. In addition to them getting tricked by the witch, who has captured the wizard and taken over as the ruler of Oz in order to kill them all and take Dorothy's slippers. However, at the end, as everyone protects Dorothy from the evil witch, it gets revealed that no one among them turns into stone after touching the slippers because of their good qualities, while the witch herself, upon putting them on, does become stone, crumble, and fall apart, bringing peace and excitement to the land and allowing Dorothy to return home, but now with just the power of her thought. Dorothy returns in the 1972 animated movie Journey Back to Oz, which is a loose adaptation of Baum's 1904 second novel, The Marvelous Land of Oz, voiced by Liza Minnelli. Here, she is presented as a young girl with long black hair separated into two pigtails with a red hairband and two small red bows, wearing almost the same dress as her 1939 incarnation, but with the addition of a big red bow at the back. In the story, though a similar trajectory of events occurs, the details of many of them have been altered, such as after she gets to Oz by a tornado, there she encounters Pumpkinhead and a former merry-go-round pink horse, Woodenhead Stallion, only after which she meets the Scarecrow, Lion, and Tinman, most of whom decide not to help her out of fear of the Green Elephant's army created by Mombi, who's a cousin of other wicked witches. While Glinda does provide her helpful advice and also gives her a little silver box, which is only to be opened in a dire emergency, at the end, using the silver box, Dorothy releases a great number of mice, who scare all the elephants away, thwarting Mombi's plans, with her disguising herself as a rose with poisonous thorns, but soon getting fatally trampled upon by the running elephants herself, erasing her magic from the land, allowing Dorothy to bid a warm farewell and return home. In 1974, the first onstage musical, The Whiz, which is a reimagining of Baum's original 1900 novel, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, in the context of contemporary African-American culture, features Dorothy, played originally by Stephanie Mills. Here, she appears as a young African-American girl with short black hair, but now with two hair buns, or pigtails, wearing a white dress with a thin red belt and silver slippers. While the story of her journey from her farm in Kansas to the land of Oz, her and her friends' adventures there, as well as challenges coming from the Wicked Witch of the West, and also the fake Wizard of Oz, ending with her happily returning back home, fairly closely follows the traditional storyline. Following, Dorothy returns to the scene in the 1978 live musical movie The Whiz, which is a very creative adaptation of the original story set in modern times, based on the 1974 eponymous musical portrayed by Diana Ross. Here she's depicted as a 24-year-old African-American woman with short black hair, wearing earrings, a light pink dress, and silver slippers, while her personality reflects that of a regular adult who had never encountered magic before, making her often feel and behave uncertain and scared rather than adventurous and excited, like several of her previous incarnations. In the story, she is depicted as an adult elementary school teacher who lives with her uncle and aunt in a modern house and soon runs after her dog Toto, who ran out of the house into a snowstorm trying to save him, but after doing so, she gets trapped in the storm, which then becomes a whirlwind that transports them to the land of Oz, where she again accidentally kills one of the wicked witches whose slippers she later obtains, but now because she hits an electric Oz sign that falls on the witch. Later, after she meets her Oz friends, the Scarecrow, Tinman and Lion, as well as first encounters the Wizard of Oz, here called the Whiz, and receives the task to kill the Wicked Witch of the West, here the witch manages to capture them all first, torturing her friends and almost taking her slippers. But after Dorothy decides to activate the sprinkler extinguishing system, the witch melts away, granting everyone freedom from her magic. At the end, as Dorothy and others discover that the Whiz is just a regular human, she herself reassures her friends that they have had their wishes all along, and after saying goodbye, returns home happily with the use of her slippers. Next, Dorothy appears in the 1980 Thanksgiving animated special, Thanksgiving in the Land of Oz, voiced by Misha Bond. Here she has the appearance of a young girl, but who now has short brown hair down with no accessories, and also wears a long blue dress and a beige hat with a blue ribbon. In the special, set some time after Dorothy's first journey to Oz, she appears preparing to celebrate the last Thanksgiving with her aunt and uncle together before their farm is sold off to the bank. But soon she meets none other than the wizard himself, who informs her about his achievements in the world of humans, specifically about his balloon business right when Dorothy begins to fly away uncontrollably while holding on to one of them, which brings her back to Oz. There she encounters new friends but also a new threat, Tyron the Terrible Toy Tinker, who plans to take over the Emerald City by creating an army of sentient toys with the use of the Powder of Life, whom she intends to stop with the help of her friends. At the end, after she flies to see Tyron in his castle and sings him a song about how Christmas and toys bring peace and love to Oz, he has a change of heart and decides not to enact his nefarious plan after all, after which she returns to the Emerald City and meets Queen Ozma, who rewards her by bringing her uncle, aunt, and their farm to Oz forever so they can all have a Thanksgiving feast together. In the 1982 first anime adaptation in the franchise, The Wizard of Oz, Dorothy appears, voiced by Aileen Quinn in English. Here, she appears yet again as a young girl with a similar dress to her 1939 version with white and blue sections, as well as the ruby slippers, but now has the closest hair to the original, having it blonde or yellow and done in a ponytail with a small red ribbon bow. While the story of her journey reenacts the same plotline as the traditional one, following her path from Kansas to Oz, meeting Glinda and her new friends, asking for help from the wizard, defeating the Wicked Witch of the West with water, and successfully returning back home with the help of her ruby slippers. Then Dorothy reappears in the Polish stop-motion animated series In the Land of the Wizard of Oz, voiced by Ilona Kusmierska. Here, she returns as her traditional young self, but now again has her hair black and short, as well as separated into two tails by the two sides of her face, wearing a blue and white plaid dress in addition to silver slippers, with her journey closely following the original plot from the novel. In the 1985 dark fantasy live-action movie Return to Oz, which serves as an unofficial sequel to the 1939 movie, Dorothy appears, played by Firuza Balk. Here, she's portrayed by a small girl with long brown hair divided into two braids on both sides of her head and wearing a pink and white dress and a light pink dress with stripes, in addition to famous ruby slippers. In the story, set 6 months after Dorothy's first visit to the Land of Oz, she continues to live with her aunt and uncle in Kansas, who, after hearing her memories of Oz, don't believe her and think she may be delusional, prompting their decision to get an appointment with Dr. Worley, who intends to perform electrotherapy on her, but after another girl there tells her the truth about what's going on in the hospital, they both escape in the middle of a storm, with Dorothy losing sight of the other girl while floating downstream aboard a chicken coop, which brings her back to Oz. There, she discovers the land in ruins and all its citizens turned into stone, including the Tin Man and Cowardly Lion, and now seeks to find the Scarecrow, who was the king the previous time she was there. But first, she enters the castle of Princess Mombi, who wears the different heads of the women of Oz and who also intends to use Dorothy's, as well as reveals to her that Scarecrow is being held prisoner by the Gnome King, the one responsible for the destruction of Oz, prompting Dorothy's escape with the help of her new friends in order to find him. At the end, after she encounters the Gnome King and learns that he has her ruby slippers with which he had conquered Oz, she passes his challenge of finding the right object in the room and later witnesses his death as he tries to eat them, but takes her pet chicken and eats her egg that was revealed to be poisonous to him, with her taking the slippers and restoring the land to its former state. After which everyone proposes her to be the next queen, though she kindly refuses, allowing Princess Ozma to emerge from her captivity and grant Dorothy's wish to return home. Following in the second anime TV series in the franchise, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, which is based on 4 of the original books by Baum, Dorothy appears, voiced by Morgan Hallett in English. Here, she traditionally appears as a little girl, but now she has long red hair, wears her familiar blue-white dress, and subsequently silver slippers. In the series, which is divided into 4 parts covering each book respectively, Dorothy's journey gets described in chronological order, beginning with her first ever journey to Oz and her adventures there together with her friends, where she has to deal with the Wicked Witch of the West as well as the lying Wizard of Oz who can't help her get back home, and ending with her successfully achieving her wish with the help of Glinda and her first friends Scarecrow, Tinman, and Lion. Then, following the next book, after she returned home, now alongside her slippers, she accidentally travels back to Oz, leaving her slippers behind and, as she believes, her only hope of returning together with them. There, she meets with her old friends, as well as gains several new ones, with whom she ends up working throughout the story to stop a new threat in Oz, the Wicked Witch Mombi, united with a General Jaynor, who both plot to overthrow Oz, which she does succeed in doing at the end, after which Glinda informs her that her magic is another way for her to return home, exciting her as a result and allowing her to do so. In the third adaptation, Dorothy and her friends return to unite in Oz again, but now in order to deal with the new danger on their path, the Gnome King and his gnome army, who plan to take over Oz for themselves while pouring giant tubs of lava on their path, trying to drown them in a river of lava and catapulting them with giant boulders. Though despite this, Dorothy and her friends still prevail, driving him away, but not yet defeating him fully, with her herself staying in Oz for the time being. And in the fourth and final story, Dorothy faces off against the Gnome King yet again and his reinforced alliances and additional powers, while she herself isn't left defenseless but is confident and strong alongside all her friends, including Princess Ozma and Glinda, with their magical powers on her side, culminating in Dorothy and her friends' final and complete victory for the bright future of Oz. Next, Dorothy appears in the animated TV show The Wizard of Oz, which is based on the 1939 movie and which serves as a continuation of it, voiced by Liz Georges. Here, she appears as a teenage girl who closely resembles the live-action Dorothy from the movie, though she was also adapted to look more conventionally cartoonish. In the story, after Dorothy decides to return to Oz by using the ruby slippers that suddenly appeared on her doorstep, by clicking them and reciting "There is no place like Oz," she happily reunites with Scarecrow, Tinman, and Cowardly Lion, as well as Glinda, from whom she learns that the Wicked Witch of the West has been revived by her winged monkeys, allowing her to take over the Emerald City, steal the gifts from Scarecrow, Tinman, and Lion, and also cast a spell on the wizard so that he would be continuously blown by the wind in his hot air balloon. This information prompts Dorothy to set out together with her friends to stop the witch no matter what, a task complicated by her powerful magic and creative thinking, which gets demonstrated in the episode A Star Is Gone when Dorothy has to find a way to restore her ruby slippers, which the witch has neutralized by draining all the red magical glow from them, which she eventually manages to do, as well as driving the Wicked Witch herself away at the end. Then, in the 1995 musical TV stage performance The Wizard of Oz in Concert, Dreams Come True, which is again based on the 1939 movie and closely follows its plot, Dorothy appears, portrayed by Jewel Kilcher, with Dorothy here appearing as a woman with light brown hair made into two braided pigtails and wearing a traditional-looking white and blue plaid dress. Following, Dorothy can be spotted in the animated TV show Timon and Pumbaa in the episode Broadway Bound and Gagged, briefly appearing and flying away on her hot air balloon during Timon and Pumbaa's Broadway show preparations. Dorothy returns in the animated TV series Futurama in the episode Anthology of Interest 2, portrayed by one of the main characters, Leela, voiced by Katie Sagal. Here, after Leela gets hit on the head, she begins to have a dream, which serves as a parody of the story of The Wizard of Oz, in which she gets taken to Oz by a tornado while in her Planet Express ship, after which she takes the killed Wicked Witch of the East's magic ruby boots from her corpse and puts them on, later proceeding to look for a way to return home with Amy, who's here Glinda's counterpart, telling her that only the professor at the Emerald Laboratory can send her home, where she now goes while being helped by this version Scarecrow, Tinman, and Lion. On their way, however, the Wicked Witch mom captures them all and asks Leela to become her daughter, to which she happily agrees, but when Tinman opens a celebratory bottle of champagne, it spills onto Mom and causes her to melt as a result, after which they resume their journey to the Emerald Laboratory where the professor tells Leela to click her boots together and wish to be sent back home, but instead, she uses them to become a witch, turning Scarecrow, Tinman, and the professor into toads. However, a toilet overflow in the upstairs bathroom caused by Zoidberg, who's the lion, leaks through the ceiling and melts Leela as well, after which she wakes up. Following, in the 2003 on-stage musical Wicked the Musical, which is adapted from Gregory Maguire's 1995 novel Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West, and which elaborates the events surrounding Dorothy's journey, she herself appears toward the very end and only as a shadow, throwing a bucket of water at the Wicked Witch Elphaba and thus causing her to melt. Dorothy appears next in the 2004 animated movie Teacher's Pet the Movie, making a cameo with her dog during the song A Whole Bunch of World when it starts talking about Kansas, ending with her being blown away by a tornado. In the 2005 live musical movie The Muppets Wizard of Oz, which is a modern adaptation of the original novel, Dorothy appears, played by Ashanti. Here, she appears as an African-American teenage girl who has long, straight brown hair, most commonly in the form of a ponytail or simply free, but with 2 hair clips, and wearing a pink and white plaid dress with a badge, carrying her name from the restaurant of her aunt and uncle, and also silver slippers. In the story, which mainly follows the traditional storyline, though it is still clearly modernized, several modifications connected to Dorothy can be noticed. Specifically, that while in Kansas for some time already, her dream has been to become a famous singer, a dream that she wishes to fulfill once in the land of Oz, where the citizens tell her that the land's ruler, the wizard, can help her. And the Good Witch of the North gives her a pair of magic silver slippers from the deceased Wicked Witch of the East. Then, after meeting the wizard, in exchange for her wish, he requests to retrieve the Wicked Witch of the West's magic eye, which she uses to see anything she wants in the land of Oz, to which she agrees. But after the witch sees her and her friends coming, she captures them and tries to kill them, prompting Dorothy's self-defense by kicking her into her own bottled water bath, which actually contained tap water, to which she is severely allergic, leading to her melting in it and thus allowing Dorothy to freely take her eye that was floating in the tub. At the end, after she discovers that the wizard is fake, she is still granted her wish and finally becomes a singer in Oz, but soon begins to miss her aunt and uncle and thus decides to return home with the help of her slippers. Dorothy cameos in the 2007 live TV miniseries Tin Man, which is a sci-fi reimagining of the classical novel, toward the end when it is revealed that she is the greatest great-grandmother of DG, who's one of the main characters and who was named after her, to whom she gives the Emerald of the Eclipse, a powerful magical artifact in her simulation from the past, portrayed by Rachel Patay. Following, in the stop-motion animated comedy TV show Robot Chicken, Dorothy as a toy doll cameos in the episode 2 Weeks Without Food in a parody depicting what happens after she leaves Oz, showing how the wizard takes back all his gifts. Next, in the animated sitcom musical TV series Phineas and Ferb, Dorothy cameos with Toto in the episode Wizard of Oz. As the Wicked Witch, Dr. Doofenshmirtz, puts on the ruby shoes and begins to sing happily, Dorothy lands on him in her house, voiced by Kari Wahlgren. In the 2011 animated comedy movie Tom and Jerry and the Wizard of Oz, which is a close retelling of the plot from the 1939 movie with the addition of Tom and Jerry, who serve as the central characters experiencing the events from their point of view, as well as interacting with Dorothy and others along the way. Dorothy reappears in her traditional role, being depicted as an almost identical cartoon version of her 1939 incarnation, voiced by Gray Delisle. Dorothy appears next in the 2011 live-action movie Dorothy and the Witches of Oz, which is an adaptation based on several of Baum's novels, portrayed by Polly Rojas as an adult and Marisa Smoker as a child. Here, she mainly appears as an adult Mexican-American woman with long black hair, which she sometimes stylizes, and dark brown eyes, while she wears accessories and makeup as well as various outfits throughout, both formal and informal ones. In the story, set in the 21st century, she first appears living her life in Kansas together with her aunt and uncle, working in a chocolate cafe, while also writing children's books based on her dreams about the magical land of Oz and a small girl's adventures there called Dorothy. Subsequently becoming recognized and praised for her literary achievements and even getting invited to come to New York City for a contract with a famous publisher. However, once several mysterious things start to occur in her life, she slowly realizes that her dreams are not dreams at all, but repressed and forgotten memories of her own past, which revealed that she was actually born in 1899 and was brought to Oz via a tornado when she was a child, and accidentally killed one of the Wicked Witches by landing on her, prompting the Wicked Witch of the West to seek revenge. There she was entrusted by the wizard and Glinda to hide from the Wicked Witch a key to the powerful magic book of Minnie, which would allow anyone to have full control over Oz, which also takes and stores her memories so that she herself wouldn't remember where it is until the right time. So at the end, after she encounters and battles with the witch in her world and remembers everything, with the support of her friends, the wizard and Glinda, she manages to use the power of the key, as well as the book, to bring the magic of Oz into her world and thus defeat the Wicked Witch of the West with it, and thus restore the peace and harmony both in her world and the land of Oz. Following, Dorothy appears next in the live-action TV series Supernatural in the episode Slumber Party, which is a reimagining and a continuation of the original story of her journey in and outside the land of Oz as a guest character portrayed by T.O. Horn. Here she appears as a grown woman with long brown hair that she puts in a bun and wearing beige pants, a white shirt, and a leather jacket. In the story, she appears as a daughter of L. Frank Baum, thus having his last name, and one of the hunters, those who save people from nefarious supernatural entities. It is also revealed that in this universe, the Land of Oz is a real place, though, according to Dorothy herself, not everything written about it in her father's books is true, with one such example being how she can kill the Wicked Witch, or rather, cannot, as she already tried seemingly everything, including water, and nothing worked, prompting her to not fatally seal herself and the witch together in a jar with a special spell. However, 75 years later, the jar gets accidentally broken by Sam and Dean, who are among the main characters, releasing both Dorothy and the witch, prompting her and her new friends hunt after her, while she possesses some of them and manipulates them into fighting each other, and even Dorothy almost gets killed, though with the help from Charlie, another main character, who stabs the witch with the ruby slipper. Everyone gets saved at the end, with Dorothy inviting Charlie to visit Oz together, fulfilling her dream of a special adventure. In the 2013 animated musical movie Legends of Oz: Dorothy's Return, which is loosely based on the 1989 book Dorothy of Oz by L. Frank Baum's great-grandson, and serves as a sequel to the original story, Dorothy reappears, voiced by Lea Michele. Here, she appears as a teenager, with long brown hair split into 2 braids and wearing a dark blue dress with a blue and white plaid shirt. In the story, once another danger comes to the Land of Oz, Dorothy gets summoned by the Scarecrow, Tinman, and Lion via the Rainbow Portal, but before she could reach them, the flying monkeys attack them, causing Dorothy to land outside the Emerald City, though she still meets several new friends who help her along her way. Meanwhile, it is revealed that the new threat to Oz is none other than the brother of the Wicked Witch of the West, Jester, who, using her stolen broomstick and a magic orb, overtook Oz and also turned all the leaders of the land, including Glinda, into subservient wooden marionettes. Then, after a strenuous journey with many challenges along the way, she finally meets Jester face-to-face at his palace and engages with him in a battle while her friends fight off the army of flying monkeys, during which Jester creates a tornado to get rid of her but almost gets sucked into it himself instead, with Dorothy taking hold of the staff and undoing all his evil magic, as well as proceeding to save Jester himself, out of compassion. But after she throws the staff into the tornado, Jester jumps after it and disappears, allowing Dorothy to happily reunite with all her freed friends and then return home with Glinda's magic. Dorothy cameos next in the CGI animated TV series Mickey Mouse Clubhouse in the mini-special The Wizard of Diz, portrayed by Minnie Mouse and voiced by Russi Taylor. In the story, which is a creative reimagining of the original, Minnie and her dog Pluto get transported to the land of Diz via a tornado, where they meet the good witch Clarabelle Cow, who gives her magical emerald slippers and directs her to a road to find the Wizard of Diz. But before that, they both have to fight off the bad witch, Pete, who wanted to steal Minnie's slippers. Along the way, she meets Scarecrow Goofy, Mickey the Tin Mouse, and Donald the Lion, and together they come to the wizard, who gives them the task of bringing him the bad witch Pete's magic hat, which they achieve by making Pete sneeze, which takes away his powers, prompting him to apologize and be good from now on, with Minnie inviting him along so that the wizard could help him too, At the end, as Minnie's first method of returning home via a hot air balloon fails, Clarabelle Cow instructs her how to use her slippers to do so magically by performing a simple tap dance. Dorothy reappears in the live-action adventure drama TV show Once Upon a Time, which incorporates and adapts various famous literary works and characters in them, including The Wonderful Wizard of Oz as a guest character, portrayed by Maitreya Scarwenner as a child and Thierry Reeves as an adult. Here as a teenager, she has long black hair without any particular hairstyle and wears a white and blue plaid dress, while as an adult, she has her hair braided to one side and also wears a dress, but now with a thick leather belt, gloves, and a bag, as well as carrying a sword and silver slippers. In the story, she first appears in Oz after getting carried there by a tornado, where she is met and welcomed by Glinda and Zelena, who's the Wicked Witch, though Zelena quickly begins to feel envious toward Dorothy, believing her to be purer and more good than her, which gets only worse after she reads a prophecy stating that the greatest evil would be slain by a newcomer to the realm, interpreting it to be specifically connected to them and thus prompting her to try and attack Dorothy with fire, to which she responds by throwing a bucket of water, accidentally causing Zelena to melt, which makes everyone think she died. After which, Glinda brings her to the wizard, who gives her the silver slippers and helps her return home, while it gets revealed that the wizard is actually Zelena in disguise, who fulfilled her plan of getting rid of Dorothy so that she could continue her evil plans. Then, years later in her chronology, Dorothy, having been informed by the Munchkins that Zelena hadn't been killed and had taken over all of Oz, returns to stop Zelena from stealing the Scarecrow's brain for her magic spell recipe, escaping with him and hiding in the forest. However, because Zelena still manages to track them down, Dorothy gets frozen by her magic and forced to watch helplessly as she removes the Scarecrow's brain, prompting her to unite with several other people, specifically Ruby and Mulan, and try to stop her together. And as Dorothy and Ruby talk together more and more, they begin to quickly like each other, and in the course of their interactions, Dorothy and Ruby fall in love, which prompts Dorothy to go after Zelena alone to protect Ruby, with Zelena managing to put her under a sleeping curse before she could do anything. But at the end, despite Zelena thinking that she defeated Dorothy for good, believing no one actually loved her, after Ruby is brought to sleeping Dorothy, she kisses her with the true love's kiss and thus wakes her up, happily reuniting together as a result. In the 2015 live TV special The Whiz Live, which is based on both the original Broadway play and its 1978 movie adaptation, Dorothy appears portrayed by Shanice Williams. Here, she appears as an African-American teenage girl with black curly middle-length hair and wearing a black t-shirt, a jacket, and a skirt with red and black colors, as well as red shoes until she puts on the silver slippers. The story closely follows the events of the play and also incorporates several elements from the movie while adding additional modifications, such as after she learns that the Whiz, who's now a woman, is a fake, she not only asks to help her get home via her hot air balloon, but also persuades her to abandon her life of deception and solitude and find something better and more fulfilling in her life, prompting her change of heart. Dorothy returns to the scene in the live-action drama TV show Emerald City, which is a modernized adaptation of the Oz book series, played by Adria Arjona. Here, she appears as a grown woman with long black hair and wearing a gray t-shirt, a brown shirt, and black pants, and later in this version, she also has ruby gloves instead of slippers. In the story, she is first presented as a young nurse who lives with her aunt and uncle in Kansas and who wishes to meet with her biological mother, Karen. But due to a sudden storm with a cyclone, she finds her injured in the cellar and almost gets into it directly herself, but manages to get into a nearby police car, in which she gets taken up and relocated to the land of Oz, where she accidentally lands on the Wicked Witch of the East, believing she killed her. But after she goes out to find where to go next, a German shepherd comes out of the car and begins to follow her, later becoming her canine friend, which is different from the traditional story where she had her own dog. However, soon, on her way to the Emerald City, she encounters a crucified man covered in straw with no memory and helps him, after which the Wicked Witch of the East finds them, demonstrating that she hadn't died, since according to herself, only a witch can kill another witch, and begins to torment them both, thinking they were sent to kill her, right after which Dorothy tricks her into pulling a trigger on the police gun from her backpack on herself, freeing them as a result, but also transferring the witch's ruby gloves onto Dorothy's hands. Then, in the course of the series, she seeks to find a way to return home while navigating through unknown places, as well as dealing with many dangers along the way, such as the Order by the Wizard of Oz, who's a regular man, but who's also obsessed with preserving the power of ruling Oz in his hands no matter what, to kill her, believing her to be a witch who could replace him, while also discovering some information about her past, specifically that her biological mother, Dr. Jane Andrews, who's a woman of science, an inventor, and a military contractor for the royal family, has been in Oz this whole time and only sent her away to protect her, which she also does at the end, after they meet each other, sending her back home through a tornado simulator as the war between the wizard and the witches ensues. Dorothy reappears in the CGI animated TV series Lost in Oz, which is an adaptation in an alternate Oz reality voiced by Ashley Betcher. Here, she appears as a teenage girl with brown middle-length hair and wearing a white t-shirt, a red sweater, jeans, and a backpack, as well as a watch. One of her additional new characteristics is her hobby and skill of building various Rube Goldberg devices to achieve simple goals, such as her elaborate scheme in her home just to take her clothes out of the closet. In the story, she's first presented as a girl living with her mother and going to school, until one day she finds a book underneath the floorboards of her house, which accidentally creates a tornado and teleports her to Oz alongside her dog and house, though now she doesn't kill anyone upon landing. There, while searching for a way to return home, she befriends several people, such as the streetwise witch West, who's a great-granddaughter of the original Wicked Witch, a friendly munchkin, Ojo, Glinda, and others, discovering a serious problem with magic along the way, hence why even Glinda couldn't help her, with the cause behind this revealed to be the gnomes and Langwidere, the Aunt of West, who could absorb it from anyone but Dorothy, who's a regular human and thus immune to their most powerful weapon, providing her a great advantage. Though even after defeating Langwidere, collecting all the magical elements needed, and restoring magic in Oz, at first, she fails to use the book properly, and still remains in Oz. Until she does manage to redo the spell, but now takes all her Oz friends alongside her, prompting them to now look for new ways of returning them home, which they eventually manage to do, concluding Dorothy and her friends' rich adventures together. Dorothy cameos in the animated sitcom TV show The Simpsons in the episode Halloween of Horror as an African-American girl dressed as her for Halloween. Dorothy returns in the 2016 animated movie sequel Tom and Jerry, back to Oz voiced by Grey Griffin. In the story, while Dorothy continues to live peacefully with her aunt and uncle, they suddenly get attacked by a flying monkey, after which Scarecrow, Tinman, and Lion appear and inform Dorothy that the Gnome King, Ruggedo, has taken over the Emerald City, imprisoned Glinda, and taken her wand, and now he intends to destroy Dorothy and obtain her ruby slippers, prompting them all to look for the wizard who could help them return to Oz, which he does with the use of a bottle of magic tornado. Once in Oz, Dorothy and others try to reach the Emerald City to see if there's anything in the wizard's old chambers that can help them, but due to King Gnome's great force and army, Dorothy and Scarecrow get captured by him, causing her to surrender her slippers, thus giving him immense power and allowing him to plunge the Emerald City into the gnomes' underground home, as well as almost kill them along the way. But with the help from Dorothy friends, both old and new, they manage to outwit, distract, and subsequently defeat the Gnome King, allowing Dorothy to use her ruby slippers to undo all the bad things he had done in Oz and restore the peace once again, with Glinda rewarding her for her selfless heroism by gifting her the ruby slippers forever. Following, in the animated children's TV show Dorothy and the Wizard of Oz, which is inspired by the original books as well as the 1939 movie adaptation, Dorothy reappears, voiced by Carrie Walgren. Here, this is the first time when she is being portrayed as a little girl while adapting Dorothy from the 1939 movie, with her physical characteristics remaining very similar, with some modifications making her cartoonish. In the story, set soon after she and her friends defeated the Wicked Witch of the West, Queen Ozma has appointed her to be the princess of Emerald City, and thus protect it from various dangers that might arise, such as the Gnome King or Wilhelmina, who's the niece of the Wicked Witches of the East and West, both of whom try to either take away her slippers or take over Oz by other means, with Dorothy eventually managing to stop them every time, alongside her loyal friends. Then, in the 2019 animated comedy movie, The Lego Movie 2: The Second Part, Dorothy cameos in her Lego incarnation dancing alongside her friends after having been transported from the Land of Oz to Harmony Town in the Sistar system. Next, Dorothy cameos in the live-action TV miniseries Agatha All Along during the end credits of every episode, in an illustration from the original The Wonderful Wizard of Oz book. In the 2024 live-action musical Wicked Part 1, which is an adaptation of the first act of the 2003 eponymous stage musical Dorothy Cameos, walking on the yellow brick road with Elphaba's broom in tow alongside her Oz friends, portrayed by Bethany Weaver. Finally, in the 2025 sequel movie Wicked for Good, Dorothy appears again, reprising her design from the 1939 movie, but without directly showing her face, which is consistent with the original Broadway musical, where she doesn't appear on stage, remaining a mystery off stage, and being again portrayed by Bethany Weaver. The most noticeable visual change in this movie is Dorothy's shoes. Instead of the famous ruby slippers worn by Judy Garland in the 1939 movie, here she wears silver slippers, as in Baum's original 1900 novel, The Wizard of Oz, where the shoes were described as silver, while the ruby color was introduced in the movie adaptation to take advantage of the new Technicolor technology. In the story, she replays her traditional path from the point of her arrival to Oz, as she travels to the Emerald City with Scarecrow, Tinman and Lion to have an audience with the wizard and request his help in returning her home, with him first giving her the task of eliminating the Wicked Witch and taking her broom to him, which she does at the end by throwing a bucket of water at her, allowing her to return home at the end.